Well, we continue to see this kind of upside down temperature profile, not just for the UK, but also for the continent of Europe as well, with very mild conditions getting lifted all the way up into far Arctic Europe, while we've got cold undercutting underneath the area of high pressure. It's essentially an area of high pressure that is dictating the weather pattern at the moment, with the subtropical air getting lifted north, and we've got the cold continental air getting driven in from the east underneath. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. If you're enjoying the content here on the channel, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It would be very much appreciated indeed. We've got lots going on at the moment. We are looking at some extreme cold getting driven south into North America. That's going to force the strengthening of the jet stream. There is a lot of uncertainty with regards to this area of high pressure that is centered over Central Europe at the moment here. Does it get lifted north, allowing a cold easterly into the UK? Or do we start to see the breakdown of that high as we go into next week? These are all questions that still remain unanswered, and only time will tell. But this is the upcoming 5 days of the GFS ensemble. We can see here that the core of high pressure is centered over southern Scandinavia, the Baltic Sea. We've got the areas of low pressure kind of undercutting one piece over the western Mediterranean. We're seeing wind, rain, and snow to parts of northern Africa at this time. We do have chilly air trapped at the surface underneath this area of high pressure. It's not a particularly cold high, but nevertheless, with clear skies, light winds, and calm conditions in the middle of winter, you get chilly temperatures as a consequence. Looking at the 6 to 10 day of the GFS ensemble, you can start to see that the high kind of breaks down, shifts east, allowing more of a trough moving in off the Atlantic, and it's all courtesy of a strengthening jet stream, all thanks to the Arctic air getting driven south over eastern North America. If we play through the latest run in the GFS, we've got this quite big significant split, this barrier, this split in the road, so to speak, over the far eastern North Atlantic. One piece going north of the UK, another piece going south. We've also got the subtropical jet quite active as well, but we've got a very strong boundary demarcation line between subtropical and Arctic air that's driving this strong jet core in between. Now, as we continue to play through, notice that the jet is quite far to the south. We've got a lot of blockiness remaining within the middle altitude pattern at the moment. And as we continue to play through, we're generally stuck in a little bit of a no man's land over the UK and Ireland. It's been a very dry first half to January. It looks as if that dryness is going to continue through the next several days anyway, but there is changes taking place, and it's all courtesy of what's going on over the other side of the Atlantic with this very powerful jet stream in excess of 250 miles per hour. That's going to then start to really ramp up as the Arctic air descends south over the North American continent. Then, as we continue to progress through the course of next week, it looks as if this jet extension is going to lead to storminess into the UK and Ireland. But looking at the latest of the GFS model here, this is the here and now. High pressure stuck over central areas of Europe. Underneath that high, we are seeing chilly days and chilly nights. We're also seeing that cold air kind of control the southern half of the British Isles, while we've got southwesterly winds drawing that subtropical air around the western and northern flank of the high. Hence why Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the Republic of Ireland have been mild, while England and Wales have been actually slightly below average in terms of temperature. So if we go back to the current temperatures at the moment, not a huge amount of cold air over the continent. We have some chillier across Central Europe, but nothing for the middle of January anyway. This is the current temperatures across the UK. So we've got still 10, 11 Celsius in the northwest of the British Isles. We've got the 2s and 3s over the Midlands, eastern England, slightly less cold down towards the far south of the UK. And we're also seeing temperatures anywhere from about 8 to 11 Celsius across the island of Ireland. So back to the charts here. It looks as if some of the modelling is kind of waning on that Scandi high potential. I think what's going to happen is the strength of the jet, the push of air across the Atlantic with development of low pressure is going to start to chip away at this area of high pressure. And as we play through, you can see here that we remain generally in the same setup here. We're actually going to see some slightly colder air, low level cold air getting driven more towards the UK as we move through the course of the weekend, and that means that we are going to see temperatures coming down, even across northern areas of the UK where we've seen 12 to 14 Celsius. We're going to see temperatures back into like kind of upper single figures, and with clear skies and lighter winds and drier air getting driven in on the underside of that high across more of the UK. We're going to see frost returning, especially across the north of the British Isles here. We're still seeing breaks in that cloud and foggy conditions across England and Wales, and therefore we've seen temperatures kind of low single figures, a couple of degrees below the freezing over the last several nights here. But that drier air is going to start to drift a little bit further north through the course of the weekend, allowing the temperatures to drop off at night time. We've not seen that, really since the cold ended back at the beginning of this work week. Looking at the 850s off the GFS, you can see here that we've not got a particularly cold air mass in place, but the cold is trapped pretty much at the surface. You actually go probably about 50 to 100 meters up, you're actually seeing temperatures rise by about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 degrees compared to what the surface temperatures are reading. So that's quite interesting to see, isn't it? That we're starting to erode that cold air. We've got a little bit of slightly cooler air getting lifted northwards into the UK as we progress through the course of the weekend. And then you can see this quite blocky set up here, 1026 millibar high between Iceland and Greenland. Area of low pressure is kind of stuck because of the presence of that high both to the north and the high over Europe. That area of low pressure then kind of spins away. But the overall emphasis being we do have 10 Celsius at 850 over southern portions of Scandinavia, but we don't have a tremendous amount of cold air to tap into. Even with that high lifting a little bit further north, you notice here that the models have kind of done away with the intrusion of billowy cold air around the area of high pressure building into Scandinavia. And then we're in this much more Atlantic zonal pattern where areas of low pressure are going to deepen. We still have this on the models where we've got this big divide between plus 10 and near minus 20. So you've got plus 20, plus 10 to the south, minus 20, minus 15 to the north. Very powerful jet stream in between that, and that is a breeding ground for rapid cyclogenesis, as has been said for the past few days here. And then we just continued with this cold zonal pattern with a further south jet, by the way. We do have the possibility of seeing more in the way of wintry precipitation as opposed to rain and mild conditions. That south and flat jet means that we're not really tapping any of this milder that is stuck well to the south of the UK and Ireland. Looking at the latest of the ECM model here, we can see what it's indicating in terms of the 850. So if we play through the same loop here, we can see that we've got these areas of low pressure moving in. No cold air around any Scandinavian high seen by this model either. So the models have now backed away from the Scandi high solution. And that is exactly what I thought would be taking place. I didn't think we had the right setup really as we rotate into phases 2 and 3 of the MJO, colder into North America, the type of polar vortex that we've got. I feel as if it's a bit of a rinse and repeat what I'm saying in recent days, but it's very much the case. I just couldn't see, in a sense, some of the reasoning behind why we would have a Scandinavian block with such a hemispheric setup such as we have at the moment. So it looks as if we've kind of we're seeing the kind of demise of this kind of Scandinavian high pressure solution. We do have high pressure over the continent that's going to allow low level cold air to drift into the UK through the course of the weekend, but then it's all eyes further west out over the Atlantic as we progress through next week, strengthening jet, deep areas of low pressure. And if we look at the overview chart here of the ECM, you can see that we've got the jet really starting to become a fire hose for areas of low pressure as we move towards next week. So we've got a system that drifts in from the southwest, 984 millibars. This is Thursday of next week. Up until then, we could have some chilly air weather through the first half of the week, and it's really as we progress through the second half of the week, we'll start to see changes taking place. Now, the ECM model has 3 areas of low pressure, one up towards Iceland, another moving through the southern UK, and another back behind within the jet core here. So quite a messy overall picture, but because of the position of these lows, it does suggest that we have cooler temperatures as a consequence of this 950 millibars seen by the ECMWF model towards the very end. So, like I said, we've got the opportunity for a few named storms through the final 10 days of January, with snow prospects growing because these areas of low pressure are going to transport some of that cold air from Canadian source across the Atlantic and into the UK. If you look at the model of the GFS, you can see a similar idea in terms of deep areas of low pressure. We'll lose the block eventually as the jet becomes more dominant and crosses the Atlantic, and we've got these areas of low pressure glancing blows, if not, crossing directly over the UK, and they are going to be quite deep as well. The model has a 1033 millibar high, not that far to the northwest of both the UK and Ireland towards Saturday next weekend. So it's all to play for, lots going on. Keep it right here on the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow with more.